Hey, Chris Manning here from Locked on Cavs. Coming up on today's show, Evan and I are going to dive into the Cavs loss to the Pistons, how Kevin Love has played since his second return from injury, and as well as we're going to look into what the Sexland, Okoro, Love, and Allen starting lineup has looked like in that little bit that we've seen it so far. That's all coming up today on Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Today's episode is also brought to you by Locker Room. Locker Room, changing the way we talk about sports. Download the app and join Evan and I this week on Thursday, sometime after work, TBD exact time on Locker Room. Locker Room, changing the way we talk about sports. Evan, before we dive into this game, Cleveland lost 109-105. I gotta come at you for a second, sir, because you put out a tweet that was a screen grab of the Cavs Warriors Game 7, 89-89 tied score, and this is what I'm feeling right now.
I thought you were going to call me out for midway in the second. I'm like, this is getting a little out of reach. So I grabbed my Switch and I played a round of Fortnite for the first time. Got a number 1 victory royale. Yeah, Fortnite. We're about to get down. But I didn't have 10 kills on the board. But yeah, no, that screen grab was a little egregious. But literally, dude, that was the most painfully long, just sequence of the game being tied. And I'm like, I know a friend of the pod, Justin Rowan, said, I'm so anxious right now. I just wanted to get the game over with. That's all I wanted. I wanted to talk about it. And they're dragging out stupidly long. What was so egregious about it, though?
Because that was Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals, the most consequential game in Cleveland Cavaliers history.
And lo and behold, Chris, this game against the Pistons is the most consequential game of this Cleveland Cavaliers season because I'm pretty sure the play-in tournament dream is dead.
I'm just saying, buddy, you're out there on an island. you're stretching these bits, and I respect it, but I'm just saying, pull that one back in a little bit. That's like you threw it out there a little bit too far. You got stung by the wasp, so to speak.
I'm just a humble meme farmer. I mean, no harm or distrust or displeasure or anything like that. But Chris, the Cleveland Cavaliers, that certainly was a basketball game. They lost this one 109-105 to the Detroit Pistons. This is Detroit's 18th win of the season. They are now 2.5 back at Cleveland for last place in the Central Division, which is that's something there in itself. Isaiah Stewart was a dog for the Pistons. Sadiq Bey could not miss. He was 6 of 11 from 3. He hit 5 of those 3-pointers in the first quarter. Tyler Cook got his revenge on the Cavs because for those of you who may not know, Tyler Cook started his career with the Cavaliers, finished the night with 12 and 3. Killian Hayes looked pretty sharp too, 12 and 9, and really thumbing his nose at the Cavs for telling him not to draft him. This was just I don't know. This is an interesting game for a little bit. It was real bad at first, and I'm like, oh boy, the Cavs have scored 9 points. There's only a handful of minutes left in the first quarter. And then it kind of got interesting, and then it just kind of got deflating at the end. Isn't that how you kind of feel, or do you feel differently?
I'm a little more positive in this sense, and I think that this first quarter could have been just a complete unraveling where they just look out of sorts all night, right? This could have been a situation where the Cavs were absolutely out of this game for the entire evening, where they looked like an absolutely awful basketball team. And look, they didn't play well in the first quarter. They were outscored by 15 against a Detroit Pistons team that was without Jeremy Grant, who's by far their best player.
Jared, 7 players in their rotation.
For a variety of reasons, Jared Allen's getting mollywopped by Isaiah Stewart, aka Beef Stew. Tough look for the Cavs in that first quarter in so many ways. And I think it at least showed something that they're able to kind of whittle their way back and lead for parts of the fourth quarter. But ultimately, I think they just have no one to blame but themselves. I mean, it's not going to be the play of the game because they're not going to award it in that kind of context. But I think them giving up an offensive rebound the way they did late in this game to give Detroit, who had a 2-point lead at the time, an extra possession that they turned into 2 more points, and just it's a brutal, self-afflicting way to end the game. And you could look at JB's Bickerstaff's decision to challenge a player that ultimately cost them a timeout that could have helped them advance the ball at a certain point. There's just a lot of little stuff and little things that didn't break in their direction, maybe some foul calls. Dean Wade had a 3 at one point go in the hoop and then pop right back out. There's just a lot of self-inflicted stuff and stuff that just didn't break their way. And they could have, this was still a winnable game, even though they played an absolutely awful first quarter. And that's at least something, but I don't think they're going to take solace in that.
No, I know. And credit where credit's due to JB Bickerstaff and this team. You and I talked about this with the Chase Down boys. Justin and I talked about it when he was on the show with me and you were living your best life. This Cavs team has no quit. They have a lot of heart. They have a lot of grit and determination. Like, if this was a John Boehling coach Cavs team or a Larry Drew coach Cavs team, after that first quarter, the Cavs would have just laid down and just died by death by 1,000 threes, or just would have submitted to Detroit. But the Cleveland fought back. They scrapped. They finally took the lead about late into the fourth quarter. That's my play of the night, at least. We'll talk about that in a bit. But either way, yeah, this is a winnable game for the Cavs. I'm not as frustrated as I probably seem. I just kind of had zero expectations after the first quarter, and they made it entertaining for four of them, which is all I can really ask for.
Yeah, and look, again, I think coming back and getting good performance out of a lot of guys and seeing some stuff that worked is at least positive, and the play-in tournament hopes are already thin. I've seen some people being like, "Oh, this is going to stretch out." Like, I think the play-in hopes are sort of over, barring something sort of miraculous that we're not expecting from Cleveland. But Evan, let's get into the game itself. So, you alluded to play of the night. Why don't you go into yours first? Because mine will be the more obvious one. So you pick yours here first.
So the Cavs did not lead for the entire game. They did not tie, as John Michael pointed out. I know you don't really listen to the TV broadcast sometimes, but that was something interesting to
I
note.
did, I did, I did at that point. I turned it on late when I was trying to make sure I understood every little thing that was like when there's got some like confusing foul calls and stuff. But yeah, continue.
It's just when the Cavs ran a new play, you called it expanding the playbook, but it was a really smart play drawn up by JB and the Cavs, and it was just Colin Sexton kicking cutting Darius Garland to the perimeter, and Darius drained a three, and the Cavs finally took a lead. Granted, Beef Stew tied it back up at the right back at the on Detroit's side of the ball, but that's just I don't know. Real momentum shifter. Darius Garland ended up having a pretty good game, all things considered. Shooting wise, not the best, 2 of 8 from 3, but 23 points, 6 assists. We're getting really solid outputs from Darius Garland on the offensive side of the ball, and especially from 3, like he's becoming a lot more steady and reliable of a shooter in clutch situations.
Yeah, I think that's a very good play. It was nice to see him kind of come off the screen in that way. Like I can't remember seeing that more than like a couple of times before. But Evan, my play of the night is going to be pretty simple here. So the Cavs force a steal in this game. Think of this is in the third quarter. Or maybe the second quarter somewhere in there. And so 5:30 to go, second quarter. I found my correct note. Jared Allen blocks a shot, and Darius Garland throws a absolute dime of a bounce pass, like a full court, like reminded me of. Do you remember that play where the gif of like J.R. Smith like throwing the ball like to like a ref or something, and it's like he like threw it underhand and it bounced perfectly? That's like what this pass reminded me of in a lot of ways. That's like maybe doesn't land. I don't know if you like know what I'm talking about, but
I do.
But so Darius throws this perfect pass, and Sexton is bolting up the other side of the court, and Garland plays it perfectly. It's an easy 2 points, makes it a 3-point game at that point. Like, again, just a really good play. It was probably Jared Allen's best moment of the night in a game where he wasn't particularly good, but this was just kind of coalesced perfectly. And Darius just has these really good playmaking instincts, and you see it in moments like that. All right, Evan, stat of the night. Mine is just going to be Kevin Love 0-4 from 3. I hit this on the last game. I don't want to like hammer him repeatedly, but he's 0-4 from 3 on a night where the team didn't shoot well from 3. They were 5 of 26. And it's just another night. We're like, we're going to talk about him next in the show. And so I want to save some of these thoughts for that. But just another tough thing for Kev. And that's just kind of a hard break when you need him to hit some of those shots. And he's performing very well inside the arc, at least over the last 2 games. But not making those threes is tough.
No, it really is tough for sure. And so we'll break it down this way. Okoro was 0-4 from 3. Love was 0-4 from 3. Sexton was 1-1. Darius' take was 2 of 8, which is what you want to see from him taking that many 3-pointers. Torian Prince was 2 of 7. And Dean Wade was 0-2. And it's just, 5 of 26 is just not really going to break even against the Pistons, especially like when I said they gave up 5 3-pointers to Sadiq Bey in the first quarter. And just kind of felt like it was downhill from there. But my stat of the night is the fact that Isaiah Hartenstein played really well. Jared Allen just didn't play great at all. I mean, Beef Stew, I love that nickname. That's funny. Beef Stew really gave it to for Ohio tonight, and Hartenstein just kind of responded well. And I mean, I think just the most impressive thing were the 4 assists and the 3 blocks on his part. And then just a quick run-up shout-out. Sexton combined for 51 points. Like, that's super impressive in itself. That's almost half of what Cleveland's total scoring output was, but I keep getting proved wrong at times that this tandem is sustainable, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive, they're still getting shredded at the point of attack. But yeah, my main stat pick, though, is the fact that Hartenstein had 4 assists and 3 blocks and just kind of Really was a difference maker. He did a little bit of that Larry Nance with the tertiary playmaking, and he provided that defensive presence that Jared Allen failed to kind of develop tonight, even though Allen had one block on his own right. But either way, it's still a good game for the big German.
Yeah, had 2 late fouls that weren't great either, where he kind of got himself in a little bit of trouble.
You come to expect that with Hartenstein, though. Like, he's super foul prone, and I think that's something that'll get better with time, and he hasn't really had a chance to play NBA ball. He hardly played for the Rockets, hardly played for the Nuggets. Now he gets a chance to the Cavs.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair. All right, so Evan, our my MVP, I think I'm going to go Sexton. 28, 4 assists, 7 boards, 12 of 20 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, and that 3 was a really, really nice catch and shoot 3. Just a good scoring. I felt mostly pretty good about what he did in this game. A couple little instances where the defense was a little goofy, but like again, this was a weird night for everyone, I think, and he was pretty dynamic as a scorer in this one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good pick, Sexton. If I say this time and again, people think I hate Colin Sexton. I don't. The Cavs wouldn't be in this game if Colin Sexton wasn't such a consistent scorer. Like, those 28 points are a huge difference maker. When he was sidelined with that injury, the Cavs were really struggling offensively because they needed a bucket getter as well. Like, I know the offense does flow better at times when him and Garland are separated, but you still need that scoring output from Sexton. But maybe I was kind of tipping my hat a little bit. My MVP pick is Hartenstein in this one. 13 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, 3 blocks. Like you said, 2 kind of silly fouls at the end of the game. But Jared Allen was mostly neutralized by a undersized center and Isaiah Stewart. And then Isaiah Hartenstein comes in and just kind of tips the scales back in Cleveland's favor a little bit in the middle and allows to create the little bit of that inside-out attack that the Cavs like to prioritize when they're playing offense. And I don't know, Hartenstein is just kind of a nice spark, and want to give him a shout out for that.
Fair. All right, let's dive into some Bills here. First, I want to tell you about our friends over at Locker Room, which, as you probably know by now, is changing the way we talk about sports. Locker Room is the first social audio platform made for sports fans. The app is free to download, yes, free, and once you're in, you can talk with fans, athletes, and insiders in real time about your favorite team or sport. You're going to find us on Locker Room every single week, and you're going to find Locked On hosts across the NBA, MLB, and NHL network. So if you're a Cleveland Indians fan and you want to hear Jeff Ellis's takes, you can go find him and check out the Locked On Indians podcast as well. And again, Evan and I are going to be on there Wednesday night after work. Time TBD. We'll announce it on our Twitter feed at Locked On Cavs. We'll be joining the app and hopping on there, and we're looking forward to joining you. Go download the free Locker Room app now, currently available on all iOS devices. Be sure to create a profile, link your Twitter, and join the NBA group for the latest league updates. You're going to find a ton of incredible rooms around your favorite teams and leagues, and I can't wait to join you all on the app. We'll be sure to let you know when Locked On Cavs Room is live, and download the Locker Room app today. Locker Room, changing the way we talk about sports.
Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is also sponsored by Rock Auto. Chain stores have different price tiers for professional mechanics and do-it-yourselfers. RockAuto.com's prices are the same for everybody and are reliably low. RockAuto.com always offers the lowest prices possible rather than changing prices based on what the market will bear like airlines do. RockAuto.com is for everybody and does not require membership or account login. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go to RockAuto.com to shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. So, if you're interested, go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Check them out today at rockauto.com. The Locked On Podcast Network is covering the NFL Draft from all angles. Catch up on the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 podcast presented by Odyssey. Follow Locked On NFL Draft and the Draft Dudes podcast for the latest draft news, and stay tuned for more info about our live NFL Draft coverage.
All right, Evan, let's talk about Kevin Love. So he's back, and I think he's been pretty important. I think we want to shout out in this game, at least I do, that Kevin, even though he's not maybe playing the best basketball we've seen him play, and he's, I think, still probably finding his legs a bit and all of that, Kevin is still drawing very clear attention from opposing defenses. They're reacting to him. You're seeing him get opportunities to do some damage, when teams are switching on him, or the Cavs do a quick pick and roll to manipulate it and get him onto a smaller player. You're seeing him when he gets the ball in the mid post, defenses will shade towards him, and that is freeing up room for, let's say, an Isaiah Hartenstein or Jared Allen to slide into the paint and get off a shot in the middle of the floor there and get a pretty clean look at it. That's good, simple offense. There's a lot you can do with Kevin that you just not going to do with other players. Like, even though Dean Wade can certainly shoot it, he's just not going to demand that same level of respect. That said, Kevin Love right now is, since he in the 9 games since he has returned from injury, 25.9 minutes per game, shooting 41.9% from the field, 29.9% from 3, 8.1 rebounds, 2.4 assists. He's just overall kind of, these are pretty low numbers for Kev. The shooting numbers are just kind of tough. Like, the on-off stuff can get very noisy. We're not going to really dive into that, but those are just shooting numbers that on their face, I think if you're Cleveland, you really have to hope that this is not something that is him, like, actually, again, a significant downside. I think you have to really hope that this is just coming back from injury and all that stuff working. And I think, Evan, most notably here, over these last 9 games, according to NBA.com/stats, 6.4 3-point attempts per game from him are catch and shoot. He's shooting 27.5% on those looks. That accounts for 55.4% of his shots. He's shooting 55.6% on pull-up threes, which are 9.8% of his shots. That's 1.1 attempts per game. He's not even making one on average of those per game. That's just, like, really tough, and you hope it swings the other way in a significant way, because if not, like, this marks, like, maybe if this actually, I don't think it does. I would be skeptical that this does, because he's coming off a leg injury and the rhythm's all off and all that stuff. I would suspect that you have to really hope that this is not, like, an actual negative swing for Kevin. But what do you make of that? And what have you made of him since he's come back post the second return from injury?
Well, I think in 2013 he may have been starring alongside Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, because Kevin Love still has gravity when he's out there on the floor. Like you said, teams have to respect the fact that he is a shoot. Thank you. You're not the only one who can make movie references, but
no, but that was just, like, very elaborate and very good, and, like, not, like, so weird that I'm referencing, like, a one scene from Boogie Nights. So I just respect it.
Thank you. You're far too kind. I took off my glasses. I want to thank the Academy, my mom and dad, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But Kevin Love, like you have pointed out, yeah, he's not shooting great splits right now, and I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that there is going to be a lot of rust. He didn't play at all, really, in the first half of the season. He played that full game into overtime with Detroit and played sparingly against Philly before he re-aggravated the injury, and he was out for the majority of the first half. And then just kind of the waiting game the second half of the season. Now he's back, and the Cavs are going to bring him along slowly. 20 minutes per night. I don't know. Did he exceed his minute limit tonight?
Let me check here. He played 30. So and he played 31 in that back-to-back on the second half of the back-to-back, mind you.
Yeah, so if it's like a winnable game, I think JB is going to make sure he's okay and do right by Kevin. If Kevin says he's good to go, he'll trust him and lean on him in that regard. But let's say it's a blowout like it was against Toronto the other night. Like, Kevin doesn't need to play more than 20 minutes at that point, because why would you want to re-aggravate a calf injury? Because for those of you who may not know, I do have a little bit of a medical background, but calf injuries are usually hand in hand with Achilles injuries, and calf injuries are ticking time bombs for Achilles injuries, and you don't want to re-aggravate them, and because you will rupture them. That's why the Lakers are being so cautious with Anthony Davis right now, because you don't want to rupture a player's Achilles, because Kevin Durant also isn't the best example of this, because Kevin Durant's game doesn't rely on athleticism. Neither does Kevin Love's. It's not very athletic.
Or like Breanna Stewart is another example, who's come back from an Achilles injury and is, like, just still dominating at a world-class level in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so it's tricky because the modern science has made Achilles recovery a lot better, but it's also hard, especially when you're an older player like Kevin Love, who's already injury prone to begin with. Like, no team's going to want to willingly sign up for Kevin Love if he ruptures his Achilles. So the Cavs got to be cautious of this too. So I think he's still getting his legs underneath him. I'm not too overly concerned. He has played 11 games, I think, since he's come back, if I'm correct. And
I think it's 9 since he's come back the second time. I may have miscounted, but I'll double check that.
He's played 13 games this season, so I'll check right now when we're talking.
I will look while you're talking. Continue.
He played 2 games in the. He played 4 games, and I don't know. Either way, he was out for a little bit, but either way, you got to bring him along slowly. I think there's going to be a lot of rust, especially at his age, and this is an injury that is very tricky and very scary, and you kind of have to be on a game to game basis with it sometimes. Like I don't know, now that the play in picture's kind of out of the question. I wouldn't see Kevin. I would not be surprised to see Kevin Love getting more DNP rest or DNP Achilles situations, so the Cavs just don't get fined for intentionally resting players. But yeah, I just think Kevin Love. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's such a good shooter and because he has that gravity, like I said. And that teams do still respect him as a shooter. Like, he is a threat. I know his shots aren't falling sometimes, but he is still commanding the respect of teams defensively as well. But I think the nice thing about Kevin as well, and this was my original play of the night pick, is he had a simple lob pass to Isaiah Hartenstein, and I'm like, he's starting to realize like his spots on the floor again. He's starting to find his comfort level again with his teammates, especially the new ones. And when his shot isn't falling, he's able to get involved in other ways. Like, he had multiple assists tonight too, which is a huge thing. I think he had 15, 8, and 4 tonight against the Pistons, which, I mean, obviously isn't eye popping anymore. This isn't the old Kevin Love. He's never coming back, but he's still finding ways to contribute in a positive way. And he's also not as bad defensively as people let on
Yeah.
either. It's encouraging.
He's been trying on defense, and I think that's part of it. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I would like to see how far you want to milk it. I think there's questions about how far you'd want to take it, but I think there's room to kind of milk him in those mid-post opportunities where he's getting smaller guys. Like, Kevin historically is like not as good as finishing at the rim as you sort of would expect, but I think he can beat up smaller guards if they try to switch on him, and he can punish that way, and then that's going to create a bunch of ripple effects.
Yep.
Look in these 9 games since he's been back, there's also been games where like he's come up big and helped the team win games. It's not as if he's had zero impact. He's having an impact. It's just not the level I think the name recognition you would hope. And again, I think you're just hoping it turns around.
Let's take a look at his last 9 games.
Today would have been game 10 since he came back the second time.
10. So last 10 games, his worst game was against Golden State, where he had 5 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. Like, he was a non-factor against Golden State. Just that's the thing that happens. But like, let's look at it this way: Oklahoma City, Toronto, New Orleans, Charlotte, Chicago, Miami, Philadelphia, and now Detroit. Kevin Love has scored double digits. It's not like he's scoring 20 points a night. I think he's starting to realize that the younger guards are the way of the future, and maybe he needs to be the second or third banana at times and just kind of be a complimentary veteran. But he's still playing meaningful basketball, like you and I are preaching. And it's not like he's like an abject disaster. Sans that Golden State game. Like, I think if you cut that Golden State game out, and then the New Orleans game, he didn't shoot great, but like, and also the Oklahoma City game.
Well, I think the Bulls game is the one where you look at it and it's like, okay, like
2 of 10 from 3, it's just like yikes. And he was 1 of 7 from 3 against Golden State, and then 5 of 14 from 3 against the Pelicans. Like, he's had some pretty stinky nights from the perimeter, but he's still not like a huge negative asset out there either, is the point I'm trying to get to.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I just think that's the whole point of the segment.
Yeah, no. We love Kevin Love. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, I think we'll just need to see how this goes going forward. How will the Cavs kind of manage him going forward? You know, does he rest on certain back-to-backs? Do they shut him down early? And then I think surprised
if they start shutting him down.
Yeah, I don't think there's a big benefit to it. But the other thing I will just say is I think I have this question earmarked for if they do exit interviews, and the Cavs don't always do that to my severe chagrin. I would like to ask every single player in the team, like, how do you feel like the grind of this season? Now that you're done with it, can you give us a little like insight into how this actually felt? Like, because you're not going to make excuses during the season. I'm willing to accept like that on the record in these Zoom interviews where we're going to actually talk to them and not getting to ask them like on background or whatever. Like, you're getting a little less information that way. But I'd be curious to know what they sort of would say about what the grind of the season's been like. And Kevin in particular, it's just been so weird. And I can't, like, it's already hard to come back mid-season and get your rhythm. It's got to be especially hard with the way the season is sort of structured. And so I'm very empathetic to Kevin in that aspect among a bunch of other ways. But Evan, we got one more break here, and it's time to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over. Obviously, it's been done for a while now, but the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball are in full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. You can bet on UFC too, which is, if you want to go that route, there's a ton of great fights coming up this weekend, including the Usman Masvidal rematch. Real-time updated odds. Who, Masvidal?
Yeah, It just sounds
Yeah,
like a video game. It sounds like a video game character. Go ahead.
Yeah, Game Bread, Jorge Masvidal, Miami Zone. Real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head to their website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Again, the promo code is Locked On, and we thank BetOnline, the official betting partner of the Locked On Network. Also want to tell you about the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021. Today through the 26th, listen to the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 presented by Locked On and Odyssey, featuring analysis from NFL experts Michael Irvin, Jason LaCaforna, and Brian Baldinger. Our local experts for every team making trades and picking the next stars of their team. Search the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 on the new Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Odyssey is your home for all sports podcasts, music, and news that matter to you. That's AUDACY. All right, Evan. Let's dive into the starting lineup so far. I don't even want to do numbers on this. I don't want to do net ratings and things. It is such a small sample that it's all over the place. And I just want to ask you, what do you think of the Sexton, Okoro, Love, Allen lineup so far? What is your vibe check on it as we've seen it just for these two games? I think. The 2 games or 3 games?
2 or 3 games.
3?
I think it's 2 or 3.
3. Oh yeah, game 1 was Warriors, Bulls. So Pistons. 3 losses.
So 3 losses. Can't really take too much out of it because the Warriors are kind of red hot and they did their best to contain Steph Curry, and then Steph Curry just kind of cut loose against the Cavs bench. And I don't know. I think this is a good lineup. Like in theory, like Kevin Love and Jared Allen work really well together. In theory, Isaac Okoro and Kevin Love work really well together. In my personal opinion, Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, and Kevin Love work beautifully with Isaac Okoro because Isaac Okoro right now isn't a very good shooter. He can hit threes from now and then. Friend of the pod, Jeff Nauman actually asked us, it was either last night or Saturday, like, what do we think about Okoro's offensive ceiling? And I said, and you and I both kind of agreed, like, you need 20 games next year to really get an idea of it, but I also need to see what he worked on over the summer in those 20 games to really get an idea of it, because right now he's a slasher who can play really, really, really freaking good defense at the same time. And I think the spacing that Love, like I said, with his gravity, and then the spacing that Sexton and Garland can provide, because they're both shooters, really benefits Okoro, and it also really benefits Allen. And like offensively, all these pieces make sense together. I just need to see a little bit more of it to get a better idea. But right now, I mean, 3 losses, but so far so good. Like the Cavs haven't been like absolutely slaughtered in those 3 losses, so it's something.
The Warriors game was tough, but I would say that I think the trickiest part about this is I don't feel like Jared Allen's like at his best self right now.
No, I don't think he's 100%. Like, yes, he's through concussion protocol, but he might have a couple cobwebs and he's trying to shake off a little bit of rust, and it's a little awkward too. I mean, he's got a new teammates already because from coming here to Brooklyn, but like Kevin Love's a really big difference maker on offense and defense because like Jared has to work even harder on defense now because Larry's a little bit of he's a lot of a better defensive player than Kevin. Like Kevin's been a good defensive player. He's trying, but Jared's probably got to cover for him a lot more too in terms of rim protection. And I'm sure that's a little bit taxing as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if like covering for Dean Wade is like any significantly more difficult, but I think like you're still
Dean
like
kind of like he's got active hands. He's not a world beater defensively, but he's active.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's sort of tricky is like, you know, I think you see like Hartenstein doing some creation from the nail at times, like with some little back cuts. Like I think Allen can do that stuff, and I like to see him do it more. I think the rhythm, you're just kind of figuring that out, and it's again sort of hard to do that. And again, I Jared Allen just got flat out outplayed by Isaiah Stewart in this game for the most part, and like you got to like it happens, and like you also just got to figure out like kind of how to kind of get him back kind of rolling, because he's played some really good basketball. He played some really, really good basketball at the beginning of his time in Cleveland, sort of overcoming, I would argue, like a tough situation where he was having to take shots a little further away from the rim, and he's still making them at a big clip, but the Cavs weren't making it easier for him like they had it in Brooklyn. And like I saw like some tweets during this game on Monday where it's like people are like strongly reacting to him. And like being like, oh, is he worth blah blah blah? And I think that's like a little much. I think like we gotta like take the big picture on this, and take the big picture on this lineup and on Jared Allen in particular. But I think this lineup, like you gotta let it see how much we get at the rest of the season, and then like let's see at the end of the season where it's at, rewatch some tape, figure out what worked, what didn't, and then if you're Cleveland, you figure out, because I think the important thing to note about this, I think maybe the most important thing to note about this, is that unless the Cavs like get Cade, let's just say they win the lottery, or maybe they get Jalen Green and he starts right away and they shuffle the lineup in some capacity, or Kevin gets something unexpected or unlikely happens. This is pretty likely to be the starting lineup next season. It would not shock me. Like it's at least like a 50% chance that this is starting lineup on day one of next season.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure unless the Cavs are able to find something for Kevin Love or, God willing, Jared Allen signs like a crazy lucrative offer sheet with another team, if the Cavs are able to lock him up as soon as possible in free agency. But I also think part of it too, like people, you can't bake your takes based on one game. I mean, let's look at it this way: Jared Allen's been really freaking good, especially in the pick and roll with Darius Garland. I think the Pistons prepped for that as well because in the first quarter, Darius ran a pick and roll with Jarrett and tried to throw a lob pass so Jarrett could have an easy bucket just to kind of get him rolling a little bit. Isaiah Stewart read that really well and then blocked the shot attempt. Like, there's nothing you can do about that because I'm sure teams are now prepping for that because it has become such a staple repertoire for Darius and Jared to kind of get each other going early in the game. But they'll adjust to it, I hope, at least, and things will be fine. And that's just, you don't want to bake your takes too much on that. But, like, barring Kevin Love being traded or Jared Allen being thrown like a crazy offer sheet, like I said, if the Cavs can't lock him up ASAP, this is going to be Cleveland's starting lineup. And so far, it hasn't translated to wins, but I like the returns when I watch it at least. So that's something, right?
Yeah. Again, give it time. Give it time to kind of grow and figure itself out a little bit. Give it time to get some sunlight and some nutrients and kind of blossom in some way. But Evan, any final thoughts as we get out of here?
That was a beautiful way to put it. That's my final thought.
I'm trying. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Gardner Chris, he doesn't just got a green sweater; he's got a green thumb as well.
Well, if you know my day job, which we're not going to reveal here, but that's where that came from.
There you go.
It's not. Beautiful. I'm not a grower, but never mind. I'm not talking about this anymore. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Locker Room, Rock Auto, and BetOnline for sponsoring the show. Again, be sure to check out all of the Locked On NFL draft coverage, including over at Locked On Browns. Be sure to check out Locked On Indians with Jeff Ellis as well. Check out Locked On Women's Basketball if you want some more W content as we get closer to that season. Hop on that New York Liberty bandwagon with your boy. And check out Locked On Cavs. We'll be back tomorrow with a crossover with the Locked On Bulls podcast. It was a lot of fun for us to do. To dive in with another pod here in the Central Division. Check out that. There's actually, I think, going to be a video of that available as well at WKYC for watching there.
There is.
But that's right. But until next time, again, the Cavs lose, but this has been Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris. He's Evan. Find us on Twitter, CWM Rights, and Matt Evan. On Locker Room,